right, let's do it. All right, well, here we go, and welcome to another episode of Aftershocks on AftershocksTV.com on the CMS Podcast Network. And our special guest today, we've got the frontman for Hard Rock Kings, Black Star Riders, and he's here to talk about the new single Fighting Heart from his upcoming new release titled When Life Was Hard and Fast, scheduled for a February 19th release through Nuclear Blast Records, Mr. Ricky Warwick. Ricky, man, how's it going? Thanks for coming on with us today.
Thank you for having me. What's going on, gentlemen? Good to see you.
Good to see you too, man. So yeah, it's the new record, man. When Life Was Hard and Fast. It's your first solo record in 5 years now, since 2015's covers album Stairwell Troubadour. I guess go ahead. We'll start off things. Go ahead and talk a bit about the writing and recording of the new record, and was it finished or at least close to being done when the pandemic hit, or did all this free time you've had not being able to tour, did that allow you now to complete the record?
No, it was actually done long before the pandemic. The album was recorded and finished April of last year, April 2019. So I've been sitting on it for some time. I've actually got the next solo record already finished.
Oh wow, damn!
that's what the pandemic's done for that one.
Sure.
But When Life Was Hard and Fast was finished in April of last year.
Okay.
Record was co-produced by myself and Keith Nelson. Keith, who you'll know, used to be in the band Buck Cherry.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Keith is a guitar player in Buck Cherry. Keith co-wrote quite a few of the songs on the record with me, and was very much involved. And we recorded here in Los Angeles. And and mixed in Los Angeles. All done and dusted April 2019. Great experience working with Keith Nelson, and really excited about it.
Very cool, man. So what influence, I was just going to ask you actually about Keith. That was my next question. I mean, what influence, did, if any, did, working with him have on the music you would create for the release? And is he also involved now on this other whole record that you have completed?
Keith's a phenomenal guitar player and a great songwriter.
Mm-hmm.
He's also a hell of a producer. So you're getting such a great, package when Keith comes along. He's not only that, he's a great guy as well. We just hit it when we first met. We hit it off straight away. Similar taste in guitars and music, attitude, work ethic, all that kind of good stuff that you need. I feel to make a great record. And when we started writing together, the chemistry was just there from the off. It was very natural. Nothing was forced. And we both aren't afraid to speak our minds to each other. And that's really the ideal situation when you're making music. So it was very organic. It was very easy to work with Keith, and absolutely he's involved in the next record. I mean, I'm really enjoying working and writing with him at the minute, and we're well into the process of demoing the follow-up album, even though this one isn't even out yet. But I love working with Keith, and anytime we get together, something usually pretty good happens.
Sure, man. Yeah, awesome. Another great thing too about the record is I see that you've got some really cool special guests that appear on it as well, including you got Andy Taylor from Duran Duran and Joe Elliott, of course, from Def Leppard. So talk a bit about how you were able to get both of those guys involved on this record as well.
Well, they're friends. These happen to be friends that are very famous friends and incredibly talented people. Joe, I've known for Joe is probably one of my closest and dearest friends. I mean, I have had the honor of opening up for Def Leppard on their tour back in 2003, 2004, where I opened up for them solo acoustic for a year all over the world. I was actually Joe's best man at his wedding, so Joe and I are very, very tight. Wow. And Joe actually produced my first two solo records, Tattoos and Alibis, and Love Many Trust Few, about sort of 10. So, great relationship with Joe. Joe and I really, really tight. And similar with Andy. Andy produced an Almighty album, my old band, The Almighty. Andy produced our second record way back in 1991. And we've been friends ever since. And Andy has a new solo record coming next year, and I co-wrote a bunch of songs on that with him. So, we're in each other's pockets, and it's one of those things that's nice that when you do a solo record, you can get anybody, you can ask anybody you want to play on. You don't have to, get four other guys sort of permissions, from them to say, well, I don't like him, or why are you getting him to play it? It's my record. I can do what the fuck I want. So there's the first swear word. Got it in.
Yeah, right. Nice.
And that's really it. It just, I'm lucky. I know these people. They're great supporters of me and my music, and supremely talented. I'm just happy to have them on the record.
No question. Well, Ricky, while we're talking about the guest stars a little bit, while obviously the guys Matt named are the big names, my favorite guy that I saw in the list was Luke Morley from Thunder.
Right on.
He's just such a cool guy. I've gotten to know him a little bit over the years. But I also think he's one of the most underrated, if not the most underrated performer out there, man. Is that just me, or do you think that he really doesn't get any credit for how good he is?
Well, sadly not in the United States, but obviously Thunder are very well known over in Europe, and they're a huge touring band over there. Looks amazing. He's an amazing guitar player, as you said, as you know. A great guy, and also again a great songwriter. Really, really great songwriter. And again, I've been privileged to know Luke for a long time. We went down to South America 2 years ago with Black Star Riders, and it was right when Damon Johnson was leaving the band, and he couldn't do the. We went down there with Alice in Chains and Judas Priest, and he couldn't do those dates. And Luke stepped in at the last minute and crushed it. Just came in at the last minute, learned the Black Star Rider songs. Came down to South America with us, played amazingly and saved the day. So, he's again a top guy, top musician, only too happy and proud to have him on the record.
No question. Well, Ricky, you mentioned the Almighty, which I loved back in the day. I was a big fan of the Almighty.
Thank you.
And it's very interesting listening, to you now and to Black Star Riders, obviously, and your solo stuff. Your voice is pretty much the same, but the musical style that you're writing is so different, obviously. It's you went from metal to more of a rock thing. Was that a comfort zone thing for you, or was that only because of, the job of Black Star Riders and Thin Lizzy was more classic rock? Or I guess what I'm asking is, were you always a metal guy that has stepped into being a rock guy, or were you kind of both and you're just now having more opportunity as a rock guy?
Well, I was a punk rock guy that stepped into metal.
Right.
That's really what happened with me. I'm a punk rocker, and I grew up on punk rock, but I grew up in punk rock in Ireland, so I was listening to Rory Gallagher and Thin Lizzy and Horselips. And Motorhead and AC/DC. I've never been a real out-and-out metaler. I just, music to me is so eclectic, and that's what I love about it. I just love listening to so many different styles, and I'm into so many different bands. Everything from Discharge to Smokey Robinson, the Miracles, and everything in between. You know what I mean? And that's just the way that I've always been. Obviously, one of the great things about getting the chance to sing those Thin Lizzy songs was I learned so much from Phil, even though he's no longer with us, about poetry, songwriting, delivery, everything. Just because I studied Phil, like crazy when I was learning those songs, and it really taught me a lot about melody. I also think as I've matured, my voice has probably got better with age as well. I think my guitar playing's got a lot better. Just the more you play, the better you get, and I just think all those things combined have just led me into my sort of own comfort zone now. The Almighty was very much in your face, hard, hardcore sort of metal band, and we had to live up to those ideals to a certain extent, and we couldn't stray too far outside that comfort zone. But obviously, when that ended, and the freedom of doing the solo stuff, and then obviously the wonderful experience of getting the chance to be in Lizzy, and then obviously the Black Star Riders thing, coming from that, taking it a step further with my own songwriting it's just been huge. It's been really a great experience for me.
Sure. Do you still write anything from a punk rock type of a standpoint? I mean, there's songs that maybe teeter a little bit there, like Never Comes a Rat might, sort of trying to get there, but it doesn't seem like you're still putting your stamp on that sound anymore. It seems like you've kind of strayed away. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think I've got my own sound now. I think hopefully when you hear a Ricky Warwick song, you recognize that it's Ricky Warwick. I think after 40 years, maybe I've earned that right. I'm still influenced by everything. The song you mentioned, Never Corner a Rat. I mean, that's, I was probably listening to Johnny Thunders that day when I wrote it, because I'm trying to remember that kind of riff. It's kind of good, like a Johnny Thunders guitar riff. And that's just, that's it. It's like I'll just listen to something and go, oh man, that's really inspiring. Or, and that could be, like I said, it could be a Temptation song. It could be Rain and Blood by Slayer. I just don't know what it is, and that's what I love about songwriting, that the inspiration's all around you. And, I just get great solace in checking out everything and soaking it all up,
Right. Sure. Yeah. Well, the first single, Fighting Heart, it's a great song. And,
thank you.
I read it talks about, the importance. It's really about the importance of art and the impact it has to, inspire people in their daily lives, which
Sure.
I think is something it's kind of been diminished, I think, over the years due to the devaluation of music around the globe because of, streaming and just the easy access to it. And it's just, obviously music itself, the way it was for us when we were kids is a lot different for what it is now with the younger generation of music fans. Considering that it seems as right now the world's not gonna it's gonna be struggling for a little while with the pandemic in terms of live music. Is there, you think, a silver lining in terms of that hopefully it will help revitalize the importance of art and music to people that was sort of, it's been kind of missing over, I'd say, the last decade or so?
Well, I mean, you guys name me one person that cannot get through this pandemic without watching a movie, reading a book, listening to music. That's all comes under the arts. And so if that's not important, I don't know what is, And I think that's the scary thing is, like you're saying, it's so diminished and underappreciated. It's criminal. And I just don't know what it's going to take for a lot of people to realize that art is important, and it's vitally important to our well-being. Our mental well-being, especially, I mean, music, music can't change the world. Of course it fucking changes the world. If you listen to a song, it can change how you feel. It can change your outlook and your aspect on life. A lyric can change how you think about something. It's vitally important. And there's a lot of people don't appreciate that. And there's a lot of people that don't appreciate it, but listen to the music, read the books, and watch the movies and still don't get it. It's just a hobby. It's just a part-time job. That pisses me off like you wouldn't believe. Give me an hour in a room with these people, and I'll change their mind.
Awesome,
I know
man.
people.
Well, you mentioned a couple of names before, Rory Gallagher and Thin Lizzy. Obviously, those are the big Irish rock names that we've heard over the last, 4 decades or so. In your opinion, is it simply just that, that Rory Gallagher and Thin Lizzy really represent what Irish rock's about, or does the sound really come and stem from the environment of Ireland and the very blue collar lifestyle that comes from living there? What's your opinion?
What a great question! That's a great question, and you're right on both counts. Bands like Rory Gallagher and Thin Lizzy, they encapsulated Irish folk music into the rock music. A lot of those little riffs are old Irish folk riffs that they, turned the guitars up and brought that into rock and roll. For me as a kid growing up in Northern Ireland in the 70s and the 80s, and the situation that was going on there, for want or better purpose, growing up in a war zone, nobody would come and fucking play. Nobody wanted to come to Belfast because of what was going on. So we were starved of music. So the only bands that would come up to Belfast and play were the Irish bands, where your Stiff Little Fingers, the punk bands, the Undertones, the Thin Lizzies, Rory Gallagher, Horselips. So, those were the bands that we were like, well, they're playing, and none of the hardly any of the UK bands or American bands would come over and play. So we were really, really starved. So we would take anything that we could get. I mean, it's funny, you'd get a band like Fleetwood Mac playing, and you'd have, 1,000 punks at the show, because they don't like Fleetwood Mac, but a big band is coming to play in Belfast. Might be the only time that year that happens, and everybody wanted to go to the show. Just we were so starved of live music, and Thin Lizzy, Rory Gallagher, that's a soundtrack of my youth. I could resonate with those bands. I could resonate with Phil lyrics when Phil sang about the mountains and Mourne. When I get up in the morning, when I was a kid, and pull back my blinds in my bedroom, I could see the mountains and Mourne from my bedroom window. So I'm like, he's singing about those mountains. I can relate to that. Or a band like Stiff Little Fingers singing about the troubles and how shit it was being a kid. At 13, 14 years old, I'm going, that's my life. They're singing to me about my life. I'm seeing these bands and I'm going, well, they got out of Ireland. They're now hugely successful worldwide touring bands. Perhaps there's hope and perhaps there's a chance. And it was hugely influential on me. I mean, massive. I mean, it saved my life. No doubt about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and you just hit a point. I mean, I have talked to several Irishmen over the years who they said the same exact thing you just said. Obviously they used to have to go to London or into England
Yeah. Yep.
because they wouldn't come to Dublin or Belfast.
Yeah.
So they'd have to take these long treks that would take. It's really impressive what they had to do and what they
Yeah.
did
No.
in order to go see. So I guess the same thing for you, huh?
Yeah, I mean, well,
Yeah.
I mean, I was a little too young. I moved it from Ireland to Scotland when I was 14,
Oh, okay.
and obviously, Scotland. That was an eye opener for me because suddenly Scotland, it was fine. So you had bands coming to Glasgow every other night of the week. So I started going to, concerts all the time. It was coming from a famine right into a feast almost for me. Do you know what I mean? So
Sure.
I could go and see all these great bands that I wanted to see because I moved to Glasgow, but. At that time, yeah, it was very difficult. Anything was difficult. Going anywhere was difficult. There was a curfew in the city, at 6 o'clock at night. You had to be careful where you went, who you talked to, who you were with, who you hung out with. All that had to be taken into consideration. And so just going to a concert in Belfast was I wouldn't say it might have been dangerous, but it was tricky. You had to watch where you were. Certainly, if you're a young kid, a lot of parents didn't want their kids to be out in Belfast at night. So I remember, my sisters traveling down to Dublin to see bands, and even going across like you said, going across to England to see bands, and that was expensive. And it was a boat ride and a train trip, and money was tight, and people couldn't afford that luxury.
Sure,
right, definitely. Well, Ricky, let's swing it back to the record, or specifically, I want to go to the other half of the record, to the second CD, the Stairway Troubadour covers piece that's coming as an accompaniment to When Life Was Hard and Fast. I gotta say, when I saw the track, I have not heard the songs yet. They did not send that to us, but I just read the track list, and I was like, "Holy shit! Talk about stretching the stylistically. I mean, you really stretched out stylistically on these covers."
Thank you. That came about purely by accident. I did a pledge campaign for my last solo record, When Patsy Cline Was Crazy, and every week, as part of the pledge campaign, I get the acoustic guitar and just do a cover song from the stairwell in my house, and it went over really, really well. And a lot of people out there said, where can we get our hands on these? You should do an album. So my manager said, let's just do an album. Let's just make it available to the people that sort of the pledge, make a limited amount of copies available, make it available through the pledge campaign. And that's what we did. It's all acoustically, and it was covers that inspire me, covers that make me laugh, like the Britney Spears song, or the Dead or Alive song. But the song there, like Rothschild by Iron Maiden, which it was a huge influence on me. There's I Don't Want to Grow Up by Tom Waits. The Ramones obviously covered that as well. There's I Fought the Law, so it's a real mixture of songs, and just stripped down acoustically, and it really was, the whole thing came about by accident. And then when we'd finished When Life Was Hard and Fast, my manager basically said, you should put this Stairwell Troubadour album out with it. People, that would be good, and people would like to hear it. And I went, yep, okay, done deal. So that's the story behind that.
Nice. Well, and I think you hit my point perfectly well. I think in the history of rock music, you are now and will always be the only artist ever to cover both Britney Spears and Iron Maiden on the same release.
I did a solo show a few years ago in Nottingham at a great venue in Nottingham called Rock City that I've played many, many times. And Rock City has a local bike gang that do the security there, and they're great, and it's just a good vibe. And I did that song live, and one of the greatest things I've ever seen in my life is a couple of hundred bikers singing along to "Oops, I Did It Again" by Britney Spears. I'll take that one with me to my grave. You know what I mean?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
No question,
man.
Well, Ricky, obviously, I guess we'll say your main project has been for the last, decade has been Black Star Riders.
Sure.
You guys put out a great release in 2019. I would argue your best release with Another State of Grace. There was a lot of rumors around that one that might be it, that there was talk that you guys were talking about going away. And obviously there was, several lineup changes. Where does Black Star Riders stand now? Is there more to come, or are you guys still figuring it out, or waiting for the pandemic?
I mean, I don't know where those rumors came from, because we certainly never talked about going away. I mean, we put the record out in September of last year, and we hit the road in October in Europe for, we did 7 weeks and came back in November last year. And the plan was, 2020 was to hit the States, hit the European festivals, go to Asia, South America, all that good stuff. Obviously, the pandemic hit, so we never really got a chance to tour another State of Grace in the way that we wanted to. And that's just the way it is. There's nothing we can do about it. It happened, and we have to deal with it. So sadly, that just destroyed all the plans we had for promoting that record. But no, we've actually finished and demoed the new Black Star Riders album. We're just waiting. We're waiting to get into the studio to record it. Obviously, Scott's over in London, and everybody else is in different corners of the States, and we just want to wait till it's safe and people can fly, and we'll get in the studio. But the demos are done. The songs are finished. They're written. I'm really happy with them. And as soon as we get the all clear, we'll get into the studio next year and make the next record.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Now, Ricky, I've always wondered this since you guys started, and I mean, this is the double-edged sword of hard rock and music and critics and everything else. When you guys launched Black Star Riders, there were tons of people, myself included, that were like, you know what? Bravo to them for not calling it Thin Lizzy and just capitalizing on it.
Yeah.
Now that a few years have gone by, I almost feel the opposite way on it, because I think that no matter what you would have called it, I think the legend of Phil and the importance, and having seen Black Star Riders as well, the importance that you guys have always put on Phil, even whether you're doing Thin Lizzy or Black Star Riders, I think has always kind of cast a shadow over it, to where. And maybe it's just he's such a dynamic, performer and legend that you could call it anything and you're not going to get out from under it. How do you feel now that there's been 10 years? Do you think that it has not let you grow as big as the band could have been if it was just an independent, away from Phil Lynott?
Well, I think that I'm talking to you about the fifth Black Star Riders album speaks volumes. Right. I think if it hadn't have worked, we'd have known after the first record, and we didn't know. I remember talking to Scott. Scott and both was going, "Well, here we go. Let's see. People are going to get this, if they're going to accept it, or whatever." And here we are. Like I said, about to make the fifth record, going into the 9th year of the band, and we're still going strong. And we've had a lot of success. I think that the last 2 years, when we've toured, we haven't played any Thin Lizzy songs in the set at all. It's all been Black Star Riders. And I think that's a testimony. I mean, it's such a weird thing for me sitting here to say, isn't it great we don't play any Thin Lizzy songs when Thin Lizzy are my favorite band of all time and they're so amazing. The irony of that is not lost on me, believe me, but that just shows you how much the band has evolved on its own. I'm sure without doubt we owe a huge debt to Thin Lizzy. I mean, for God's sake, Scott's in Thin Lizzy. We're always going to have that vibe and that sound in Black Star Riders sound because of who Scott Gorham is. And we love that. But the fact that we're now 4 or 5 albums into this thing and we've got, 50, 60 songs to pick a set list from, and we can stand up there on our own and sell the band as Black Star Riders. And, the reason we played Lizzy songs in the start, because we had one record.
Yeah.
And we would go out and we had to pad the set out. And, it was like, well, we'll play 4 or 5 Lizzy songs. But, and certainly in Europe, when we do shows, people now, they know they're going to get a full Black Star Rider set. And it was absolutely the right thing to do to change the name. I definitely wouldn't have been comfortable, in my heart, putting it out under Thin Lizzy. It would have bugged me till the day that I died. And I think I would have regretted it till the day that I died as well. So I'm so glad that we didn't go down that road. I think it was absolutely the right thing to do. And, we've got a great band out of it. So, I think it's a win-win all around.
Right, definitely. Well, I guess people are going to have to wait probably roughly a year before they can hear that. But that is okay, because for the early 2021, we've got When Life Was Hard and Fast, which is a kick-ass record. I definitely encourage everybody to check it out. It's a rocker. That's
It is.
that's
Oh,
probably
yeah.
the best part about it is it kicks ass. You know, it's
Thank
really
you.
a good rocking record, man. So
Thanks,
Ricky,
man.
tell people where they should go to keep up with you, and
Sure.
should there ever be tour dates again where they can get those tour dates, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, well, RickyWarwick.com is the obvious one for the website. I'm on Facebook. I'm on all the social medias, Instagram, Twitter. The album's coming out through Nuclear Blast Records. I think it's out February the 19th. We are planning tour dates for next year. We are planning some stateside tour dates as well. Obviously, that's all pandemic permitting. But
Right.
yeah, for the meantime, there's a couple more singles coming out. I think there's a new video coming out next month as well for the next track. So yeah, just usual social media places. You keep up to date with all the stuff there. There's lots of goodies. There's colored vinyl. There's all kinds of special packages and records, things that we're putting together. There's one with a hip flask and all kinds of goodies, and there's T-shirts and the whole thing.
Awesome.
Right, definitely.
Great,
All
man.
right. Well, Ricky, man, we appreciate you taking some time to spend.
Thank
with
you,
us here
guys.
on Aftershocks, man.
Yeah,
I
thanks so
enjoyed
much,
that.
Rick. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, and good luck with the show, guys. Thanks for having me
Yeah,
on.
thank you. You too, buddy. Take care. Thanks a lot.
Cheers, guys. All the best.
Cheers. Take care. Thanks for listening to Aftershocks. For more episodes, go to our website at www.aftershockspodcast.com. Visit us on our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages for more news and information on the podcast. And be sure to subscribe, listen to, and review all episodes on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all other podcast platforms. For your music listening pleasure, visit our website or go to www.shockwavesradio.com. For all comments and questions, please email us at info@aftershockspodcast.com.